On the game fish, once again, we have the dorado being quite prolific with some nice yellowfin in between them.
There's still a few fish around. We're still getting some shad and some big shad as well. We're also still getting some non-edge.
KZN anglers will always get those rods bending no matter what the weather conditions.
There you go, buddy. Hit it now!
This is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green.
Well, hey, we are back. Welcome to another Angler News KZN Fishing Report. Guys, it was a challenging week if you are a rock and surf angler. We have suffered the aftermath of that previous cyclone that came through. We've had some big seas. The anglers really struggled on the rock and surf side. However, there has been fish on the offshore side and the freshwater side. So hence our title, Still Fish to be Caught. Now, this week, it's going to be challenging as well, right? I mean, we have got a tropical storm coming out of Madagascar. We've got a cyclone coming from Mauritius. We've also got 3 days of northeasterly with the west coming through. So there has been warnings out, and two things are going to happen, right? Either going to have two winds clash with each other and make that sea settle down and be like a duck pond, or it's going to get pretty rough. But if it does get rough, do not fear, because our reporters are still going to put you into some strike zones. KZN will always find the fish. KZN anglers will always get those rods bending no matter what the weather conditions. Now, our reporters are going to tell you exactly where and when. We're going to tell you our predictions for this weekend, and we are going to tell you where we think you should go should you find the sea a bit rough, right? So let's get into it. But before we do, guys, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Kingfisher.
The Kingfisher are the leading fishing tackle specialist. We stock gear for every facet of fishing, from carp to couta, marlin to trout. Basically, everything. We have stores across KZN, from Toti to Salt Rock, Durban to Pietermaritzburg. You can also find us online at kingfisher.co.za.
Thank you, the Kingfisher. Now let's get into this week's KZN Fishing Report, starting off down the South Coast with our South Coast guru, Adam, where the purple patch has unfortunately come to an end.
Good day, Vanesh. Hope that all is well in the fishing world out there, guys. This past week, fishing has been pretty much poor, for a better word. So we've had pretty big seas, and then obviously we've had a bit of muddy waters, and then a bit of sand mixing, and then a bit of a big swell, and sort of all the things that you can expect to make fishing awkward and uncomfortable. And on the days that it has been flat and blue and glassy, obviously the fish aren't really too keen on that either. So it hasn't been a hit or a miss, though, I would say, Vanesh, because there's still a few fish around. We're still getting some shad and some big shad as well. We're also still getting some non-eds. We're still getting the greys and the hammers, and we're getting one or two sandy, slightly north-ish of South Coast, if you want to call it. There's a spot there that those have been targeting some nice sandies. And there's a couple of skates around, so there are fish in the water still, Vanesh, I hope. But in terms of the edible action, I would say it's mainly been your smaller cops, and it's obviously been your shad, with one or two smaller kingies popping up here and there. Our rivers at this stage are still producing some rock salmon. Freshwater side of things, bass have been biting, but water has been absolutely warm everywhere. We've just had really hot days, and the water's been just as hot. And obviously fish don't like too warmer water. On the ski boats, though, the guys are still getting a couple of sailfish and a few decent-sized tuna. But yeah, Vanesh, it hasn't been fireworks, but I would say in certain other areas I've heard of North Coast, people are really struggling to get some fish. At least we're still getting a couple of pulls down on the lower South Coast. Now, hopefully we get a bit of a cold breeze or a cold rush of water pushing through, cool the fish down and cool us down as well. Otherwise, guys, I hope you have an awesome weekend. Stay safe, tight lines, and let's see those catches.
Thank you, Adam Lyon. Now, guys, like Adam said, it hasn't been all that rosy, but it hasn't been all that doom and gloom. Irrespective, with those rough seas, the anglers down the South Coast still found the fish. Now, I fished last week over there, and yes, it was difficult, right? Unless you put in the time and effort, you would have not got the fish, and unfortunately, I didn't have enough time, and although I did put in the effort, trust me, I put in the effort. However, the guys that did persevere were rewarded, so that's the beauty of it down the South Coast, and this week, we'll never know what's going to happen, so let's cross our fingers and hope that we get the better weather instead of the worst. guys. Now, moving closer to Durban, from the Pennington area down to Warner Beach, Ray Thompson doesn't have the greatest news, but he still got news nevertheless, and he still has a way to catch some fish. Here he is with this week's fishing report.
Unfortunately, this week has been hectic with the cyclone seas that we've had. This is the aftermath of our cyclone that came down the Madagascar side between Mozambique and Madagascar. It left us with big seas and big surges. Unless you were fishing in rock pools, protected bays, which were northeasterly protected, there was very little fish. Blacktail, quarantine, the odd little stumpy here and there, and of course a few shad down far south. But that is everything that has come out from the south coast, Port Edward, all the way up to basically Amanzimtoti. I did, however, hear of some fish in the basin area. I know Deandra got a lovely little diamond there and a couple of greys. But other than that, I haven't heard of any fish coming out anywhere, guys. Sorry.
Ish, Ray, that sounded like you had a very uncomfortable week. Yes, the seas were uncomfortable, but like you said, there was still some fish. Now, that's the thing about this rough seas. You're going to have to find those areas where you can fish those rock pools, go and do some scratching. Fish for those blacktails, the quarantines, go ultralight, you'll still have an absolute blast, and you will get that odd shad in between. So there's nothing wrong with that. And yes, there weren't any of the non-eds like what we were expecting over this period. But with this weather, that kind of was expected, that where we were going to be doing some scratching. Now, I need some good news. I'm not sure about you guys. And that good news is on the freshwater side, where it has finally picked up. We've got some bass on the bite, just like our cover with Alan on there with that 4.4 kilo. Bass are back, guys, and Jan is going to tell us more about it.
Hey there, guys. So, anybody else notice that sunrise is just a tad later in the morning now? And there is that bit of a wee nip in the morning air. Summer isn't over by some stretch yet, but dare I say it, winter is already on its way. Can't say that I'm totally unhappy about it, as the recent heat really was something else, and I'm sure the fish won't be complaining about some cooler weather either. With the recent rains, the rivers are still a bit upside down, with only a single return from the Natal Fly Fishers Club anglers last week, and unfortunately no fish to show for it. The river was reported as slaty and very full, and as were a number of the other local streams. But on the upside, water temperature was reported at 18 degrees, which is not too bad. Less than a handful of returns from the NFFC stillwater anglers, and unfortunately not a fish to be seen between them. No comments on water conditions, but no doubt full and off color from the rains. Also on the upside, water temperature early morning was also logged at 18 degrees, so at least the input from the rains is keeping water temperatures slightly down. Bass haven't been quite as elusive as the trout, but as they say, no pictures, no proof. But word from the water is that there are fish coming from both Midmar and Albert Falls dams. Quote unquote, small fish, but a fish is a fish, as the saying goes. Just a single report of carp on the surface at Albert Falls. Very few fish to be seen, however, and not in their usual numbers. Word from up north is that Stokies is still the place to be, and there's also been some good action from the carp. Guys, do stop in at the Kingfisher Maritzburg for the best in tackle advice. And this is Jan Carbral for Kingfisher Pieter Maritzburg reporting for Angler News South Africa.
Thank you, Jan. I needed some of that good news, and that was some really good news from Midmar and Albert Falls. Yes, the trout, you know what, that's expected. That is down. But that yellowfish and the carp at Sterkfontein is the area to be. Now, Jan, you were saying you think winter is on its way. Buddy, it is still January. Come on. I know you're desperate for that winter fishing, but we still got a little bit of time to go. But I love your positivity in expecting more fish to come. So yes, we will have more fish. Now let's jump into the North Coast, where unfortunately we did not get any fish. It was quiet. In fact, our reporters, Savika up on the North Coast, told me it was a graveyard this past week because of the sea conditions. However, the guys that ventured out offshore did get tuna. They're still getting some beautiful dorado. And of course, as this time of the year is expected, the steins of the couta are there with some really nice ones coming out and some beautiful bullfish action, especially with that sailfish. Now let's get into Durban, where yes, it was trying, it was challenging, but there still was fish out there. Let's kick it off with Mike V, and he is followed by Brad Krubler.
How's it, guys? Yes, there was a good couple of days fishing before the sea and weather went nuts. It went, yes, a little bit very much pear-shaped. The days before, there was still a good good couple of grey sharks being caught here and there. Odd little sandy, some small diamonds, things like that. Couple of shad along the beachfront with some stubbies and gunters, but not too much to report when it went nuts properly. A couple of guys went to go try for bronze reef, things like that. They didn't fare too well. I know of a couple of greys that came out right at Wellington, right in the corner there against North Pier, and that was probably the only place you could have fished. Yeah, it seems to be settling down a bit. Hopefully this week we'll be able to venture out again and go get some bites. I think it was the big sea at Madagascar that closed up the banks or moved them around. I really am hoping that it did move the banks for better to make slightly deeper water and so the bigger fish can come in for us in the late part of the summer. On the paddle stews and ski boat side, some guys have launched. There's been quite a few snook around still. Some lovely ones are being caught. 1 or 2 couta in the deep, some tunny, things like that. The guys have been getting some lovely games. I heard that there was 1 or 2 guys that got some doggers and keelback, but very deep. The Oaks travels very deep. In the bay, there was a good couple of kiwis caught, some lovely grunter caught. 2 queenies came out apparently. I haven't seen pics of them yet. I'm dying to. But apparently 2 lovely little queenies came out. 1 or 2 springers still around. But yeah, cleaning up nicely. So just hoping that it does get a lot better. Guys, thank you very much. This is Mike V for ANSA News.
Yeah, guys, this is Brad here from Risky Fishing Charters. Guys, fishing over the last week. The bottom fishing, let's just start over there. It's been pretty good. Some good soldiers, slingers, and some really good Englishmen once again. And some nice rockcods coming out in the deep of some stronger side. On the game fish, once again, we have the dorado being quite prolific with some nice yellowfin in between them and a couple of salies and stuff coming out as well. The couta and stuff are from Sloty. I believe there has been some coming out there. The water's been pretty dirty after the rain. It's been a bit muffy in the shallows. Okay, guys, so this is Brad here for Angling News South Africa, Cyclones, and keep it real.
Haha, we finally get to round off the show on a positive note. Hey, that's why you listen to Angler News SA. So guys, what we've got this weekend is some trying conditions, right? It's either going to be trying or it's going to be beautiful. Whatever it's going to be, you got to be ready. And our reporters told you exactly what's been going on. I have told you what you could expect. The question now is, are you going to be ready? And with that being said,
this is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green. Find more episodes at ecr.co.za under podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Let's fish for the future.